What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. The 2022 season is now officially over, and it's time to look ahead to 2023. Really quickly about the game last night. We couldn't get it all. We had two great semifinal games, but then we had the biggest blowout in the history of the national championship. So unfortunately, we didn't get the three great games in the playoffs, but hey, the semifinals were great. But Georgia just completely dominant last night. Game, it was never close. TCU just couldn't match up. When you have a team like Georgia that is already a lot more talented than TCU, and they just are, their roster talent, they're faster, they're stronger, they're more athletic, and then you have a team like that in Georgia that comes out really motivated, and the team playing harder, and the team that looks like they want it more. That's how you get a blowout. I think we kind of saw that with Alabama, Kansas State as well. Just the talent levels, not even close. And if that talented team plays really well, the games are not going to be close. But hats off to Georgia, 2 in a row. We'll see where they wind up in my way too early top 25. But I say this every year. There is a reason why it's called a way too early top 25. It's too early to be doing this. We don't even know what the rosters are going to look like. A lot of guys still have to make their decisions on the NFL. The transfer portal is still going crazy. So this is not going to be a great top 25. It's going to change a lot. I'll do a pre-spring top 25 after things settle down. We get all the transfer portal stuff, all of the NFL declarations. We'll do that here in a few weeks. And then we'll do a post-spring top 25. And then we'll have our preseason. And it's going to change as we go through the offseason and learn more and more about these teams. And I've got a lot planned. I'm going to really try to break these teams down for you this year and give you a ton of offseason content. I actually like doing the offseason content more than in-season just because there's so much to get into, so many things to break down when you look at these teams. And I've started doing that. Again, it's too early because I haven't had a chance to go through all the teams yet, and we don't know who all is going to be back. But this is my best shot at a way too early top 25. There are going to be some teams that you don't see in this top 25 that I'm really considering, but maybe I didn't put them in here yet just because they didn't have a great year last year and I didn't want to jump them into the top 25 just yet. Example would be Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a team that I think is probably going to be a top 25 team next year, but it's still a little bit early for me to bump them into the top 25. We'll see. Maybe in the pre-spring they come into the top 25, things like that. So let's go here, starting at the bottom, 21 through 25. I've got Ole Miss at 25. They've added a couple of really good receivers in the transfer portal. Lane Kiffin has proven with Ole Miss he can get them consistently to that 8 or 9 win mark. He's done it the last couple of years, and I feel like Ole Miss is probably going to be right there near the top 25 again. Wisconsin at number 24. Luke Fickell taking over. They bring in Tanner Mordecai at quarterback. It's going to be a completely different team. There are players on that roster with Luke Fickell taking over. I think he can get them back into the top 25. Iowa at number 23. The defense, it's always good. Now you've got Cade McNamara. Not necessarily an elite quarterback, but he's going to give them more than they've gotten from that position in a long time. Eric All, the tight end from Michigan, also coming over. So this is an Iowa team that I'd really like to get into more and break down their roster, but I feel like with those additions and the coaching staff that they have where they are consistently, right there near the top 25, I think Iowa's probably going to be a top 25 team this year. North Carolina at 22, it's really all about Drake May coming back. Because of him, they are a preseason top 25 more than likely. And then South Carolina, still waiting on some NFL draft decisions. If Spencer Rattler comes back, I think this is a top 25 team. If he does not, I think they're not a top 25 team. So really a lot of that does depend on Spencer Rattler. And that's another thing with these way too early top 25s. You put probably a little bit too much weight on the quarterbacks and not just, everyone does it. I do it because that's just the most obvious thing about the teams. It's the most important position, and it really does, I think, weigh a lot into it. But I think we overreact sometimes because a lot of times that backup guy that maybe hadn't had a chance to play, he's going to be pretty good, and maybe not as good as the guy that just left, or maybe there's a transfer quarterback that one of these teams is going to add later on this summer. You just never know what that quarterback position is going to look like. So I think maybe we shouldn't look too much into that, but we do. It's just part of it, and again, it is the most important position in college football. So let's go 16 through 20 now. I think Oklahoma, you look at the way they lost a lot of close games last year, Dylan Gabriel coming back. And the defense just has to get better. It just has to get better. You would think that under Brent Venables, year 2, they're going to be improved on that side of the ball. The offense was actually pretty good last year. They got a couple of really good young running backs. I think Oklahoma can be right there in the race in the Big 12. Kansas State, I don't see them dropping off too much. They do lose Deuce Vaughn and some other big-time players. But still, the way they're coached, I think they're probably right back near the top 25. Will Howard, I believe, will be back at quarterback for them. And so I think Kansas State's still also right there in the thick of things in the Big 12. And same thing with Texas. I've got them at number 18. Probably the most talented team next year in the Big 12. I'm pretty confident in saying that. You have to wonder about the quarterback spot for them. Quinn Ewers and then Arch Manning coming in. Bijan Robinson, losing him is going to be big, but they do have plenty of talent. I think Texas, I'm not ready to put them in the top 10. I don't think Texas is back, but I think they're at least probably going to be a top 25 team. Tulane at number 17. Great year for them this past season. They're the only group of 5 team I have in my top 25. They're going to lose some playmakers, but they bring their quarterback back. And so I think Tulane has to at least be considered based off of what they did last year. And we do, on these way too early polls, we do look at last year maybe a little too much because a lot of these teams are going to be totally different. But like I said, it's too early to know what these teams are going to look like. Oregon State, number 16, they add DJ Uiagalelei out of the transfer portal. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not. I think it is an upgrade, though, for them at quarterback. If he can fit well into their offense, Oregon State could be a contender potentially in the Pac-12. This is going to be a good football team. All right, 11 through 15, I've got Utah at number 15. I have not heard about Cameron Rising, and so I may not have all the latest intel. It's very hard to keep up with every single team. Maybe he's already, maybe I'll talk about a player and I'm not sure what they're going to do, and maybe they've announced it and I missed it. And I'm sorry. I don't have all the information. That's why, again, this is a way too early top 25. I will have all that information when we do our next top 25. But Utah, really, it's about Cam Rising coming back. They'll be a good team with or without him. With him back, they're definitely right there at the top of the Pac-12 again. TCU at number 14. They lose Max Duggan. They lose some playmakers around him. But remember, Chandler Morris was actually the guy that was supposed to be their starter last year. He won the job, and he got injured. He will be back, and they've done a really nice job in the transfer portal already. So I think TCU probably is the favorite in the Big 12. Now, do I think they're a playoff contender? No. But I think they probably are the front runners in the Big 12 looking at it right now. That could change by the time the season gets here. Clemson at number 13. You just kind of feel like they're not an elite program anymore, and I'm sorry to say that to Clemson fans, but they're still a good program. But they're not a Georgia, they're not an Alabama. 2 years now that they have not made it to the college football playoff. They did win the ACC this past year, so got back there. Cade Klubnik, I should say. Sorry to say DJ Uiagalelei, but of course he's gone to Oregon State. But Cade Klubnik, we'll see what he can do. Was not, I think he can be good for them. I don't think he's a Trevor Lawrence. I don't think he's going to be a Heisman contender, but he's going to give them a spark, I think, and we saw that when he came in this past season. And they've got plenty of talent. But I think what hurts them, and I said this before, they don't really use the transfer portal. And when you've got all these other teams reloading with veteran players, it puts you at a big disadvantage when you don't do that. And I think Clemson has to. That's what's keeping them from staying up there as an elite program. They're just not using the transfer portal, and they're bringing in all these young kids, and all these other teams are bringing in veteran guys, all conference players from other teams. Clemson's going to have to do that, I think, if they're going to get back to the top of college football. Washington at number 12. I looked at some way too early polls or rankings yesterday because I think there were actually already a couple of them out. And I wanted to wait till the national championship because I actually was torn on who I was going to put at number 1. I had 2 teams that I was considering for number 1. I'll talk about that in a second. But I saw Washington and Florida State up there pretty high, like 5, 6, 7 maybe. I don't know if I'm ready to put these teams that high just yet. Michael Penix coming back for Washington. That's the thing that everyone really jumps at. But he'll lose some playmakers around him. They did it. They've used the transfer portal as well, though. So I'm really not concerned about their offense. Offensive line, maybe. I think they have some guys they'll be losing there. But if you look at their defense, especially their secondary, there's some major concerns there with Washington. I believe I saw the rankings. They were ranked 100 in pass defense. And you look at the talent that they have, especially at corner, it's not great. I think they have to address that if they're going to take that next step, maybe in the transfer portal or whatever. But Florida State at number 11, I've got them as the highest ranked ACC team right now. Now, Jordan Travis coming back. Also, Jared Verse coming back. Fabian Lovett coming back. They've got all the pieces that they need, I think, to be the front runners in the ACC. Remember that LSU Florida State game last year? It's going to be even bigger this next year. I mean, that's going to be a massive game to kick off the season. Winner of that game, I think, becomes a very serious playoff contender. That'll be a big one. But Florida State just outside the top 10 for me at number 11. Number 10 is Tennessee. Some people think they're going to drop off a ton because Hendon Hooker is gone. Did you not watch the Orange Bowl? I mean, Joe Milton looked great in that game. Defense actually played pretty well in that game. They're just going to get better. They're just going to get better as far as an overall roster standpoint, talent standpoint. They're going to get better. I think Milton has proven that he can get it done. The offense, I'm just not concerned with. Josh Heupel has proven it doesn't really matter. Who the team is, who the players are, they're going to be explosive on that side of the ball. Tennessee, I think, should be really good again next year. Let's go to number 9. How about Notre Dame? I really like what they have on defense. They struggled in some areas this past season, but I think coming back in year 2, Marcus Freeman, some of these young guys having a chance to play this past season, I think the defense will make some strides. But how about Sam Hartman coming over at quarterback? This is a team that is going to be able to run the football. The offensive line should be good again. They've got some talented backs. Now you've got Sam Hartman, but I think it really is going to be about the receivers. They need some help at receiver. Can they maybe add someone in the transfer portal? Can they get some of these guys to step up? Maybe it's just the quarterback. Maybe with a good quarterback, your receivers play better. But that's the one thing that I think is standing in the way of Notre Dame being potentially a top 5 team this year. If they can get better play out of their wide receivers with Sam Hartman at quarterback, Notre Dame becomes a very serious playoff contender. I'm telling you, don't sleep on the Irish. Number 8, Penn State. This is a team with a lot of talent. Drew Aller coming back, played a little bit this past season. We know what, the hype around him and everything. We know about these running backs. The defense should be strong. This was actually a pretty young team this past season, so they'll be a little bit older, a little bit more experienced, and if they can get good play out of that quarterback position, Penn State becomes a playoff contender. Watch out for this team. They're going to be really talented. Number 7 is Oregon. I was close on Oregon and Penn State. I think Penn State probably has the more talented team, but Bo Nix coming back for Oregon, I think, is the difference. That quarterback position, again, so important. And you look at this team overall, they've got some talent. With year 2 under Dan Lanning, I think the defense will improve. Bo Nix, a Heisman candidate, maybe one of the front runners next season. Oregon could be really dangerous. I've got them at number 7. And then at number 6, I think the highest ranked team out of the Pac-12 will be USC, at least right now, preseason. Caleb Williams will be back. The offense, I'm not concerned with them at all. They will score points. You would expect the defense to get better in year 2 under Alex Grinch. If they don't, they're still going to be good. I mean, you go back to Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma, they were a top 5 team pretty much every year. Their offense was really good every year. It's the same thing here at USC. Maybe a little bit more talent on the roster. This is a team that has a very good chance of being in that top 4 in the college football playoff at the end of the season. They were almost there this year. If they would have just won the Pac-12 championship, they would have been there. So USC, a team that I think you cannot sleep on this team. They will be right back in the thick of things again this next season with Caleb Williams coming back. Number 5 for me is Ohio State. Really, it's about the quarterback position. CJ Stroud is gone. Assuming it'll be Kyle McCord stepping in for them. How good can he be? Well, we really don't know. If he can just kind of keep that thing going, it seems like every quarterback they have winds up playing really well under Ryan Day. If he can keep that going, Ohio State's going to be right there with a chance to make the college football playoff again. The roster will be talented, plenty of weapons around him. If they don't get good quarterback play, though, I could see Ohio State being behind Michigan and Penn State in the Big Ten. So that's really what it's going to come down to for them. Number 4 is Alabama. Losing Bryce Young is going to be huge. You go back, if you watch Alabama, really the last couple of years, and you just kind of play out those games, watch them over, and you think, well, if they didn't have Bryce Young at quarterback, how many of those games would they have won? I mean, there would have been a lot of games that they would have lost. He just carried this team. He's so underrated. Bryce Young has been the best player in college football the last 2 years. I believe that, or at least the best quarterback. And, without him, you have to wonder, do they take a big step back? Because it feels like the rest of this team has kind of slowly been getting worse and worse and worse the last few years. Really, well, ever since that 2020 team, which was just phenomenal. Georgia has become the new Alabama, and Alabama is just trying to keep up. And without great quarterback play, I just don't know if they're going to be an elite top 2-3 team. But the roster talent is there. If the quarterback play is there, even if the quarterback play is average, if they go back to the Greg McElroy days, which I'm assuming it'll be Jalen Milroe. So think about Blake Sims. If you go back to that type of offense, they're still going to be in the thick of things just because there's so much talent. But I'm talking about, are they elite? Are they still on that level with Georgia? I don't know if they are without great quarterback play, but they'll definitely have a chance to prove themselves this season. LSU is actually my number 3 team. People are probably going to not agree with this, but I'm telling you, I've looked at their roster. I've looked at what they have coming back. This is going to be a really good team. Jaden Daniels at quarterback, a Heisman candidate. They got plenty of weapons around him, a very young offensive line. They were starting at times this year 2 freshmen at tackle. You look at the defense, Harold Perkins will be back. They're adding some big-time players in the transfer portal. LSU, I think, is actually the favorite again in the SEC West over Alabama because of everything they have coming back. Now, will they actually win it? They do have to go on the road to Tuscaloosa, so that's going to make it tough. But LSU, at least right now, looking at these teams, looking at these rosters, I think LSU is the better team. And then at number 2, I've got Michigan. So Michigan, news I think it was just yesterday came out, Blake Corum coming back. That is big for them. The offensive line, they're going to lose some veterans there, but J.J. McCarthy will be back. Receivers, they look pretty good there. Defense, I think, will be strong. There is just enough coming back to where I think Michigan is your number 2 team in the preseason. And I actually considered them at number 1, but after seeing what Georgia did last night, I just can't go against Georgia as the preseason number 1 team, the favorite to once again win it all. I was actually just going through their roster, working on their roster, and man, they're just loaded. They are just absolutely loaded. They'll have a lot of these guys coming back. Quarterback, you do wonder about that with Stetson Bennett gone. Carson Beck most likely going to step up there. If he can play well, at Georgia, they're going to have a really good chance to win it all again. You look at their schedule, really not too tough. They do play on the road at Tennessee. But Georgia, I think, is clearly they've got to be the preseason number 1, the favorites to once again win it all. It's become the new they've become the new Alabama, like I said before. They just continue to reload and reload and reload. It's the most talented roster in the country, I believe, and they will look to once again win the national championship. Could they possibly do that? A 3-peat. We haven't seen that in college football, maybe ever, or at least not in a long, long time. Not in my lifetime, I know that. So we'll see if Georgia is able to do that. Maybe there'll be another team, though, that as we get through the offseason, there'll be another team that starts to look a little bit better. Maybe they add some pieces in the transfer portal, or as I dig into these teams more, I think, I see some areas where this team could actually be really, really good. It's early. Again, I have a long ways to go in breaking all these teams down, but that's what we're going to do. Hopefully you join us on that journey this offseason as we prepare for the 2023 college football season, the last season with a 4-team playoff. Give me your thoughts on my top 25. Give me your way too early top 25 down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.